Welcome. We are doing something a little bit different today. As you see, we have some guests with us, and we are going to be talking a little bit about ByWater today, just to get a little bit more understanding of what's going on in their world. But first, I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
And joining us today, we have two guests from ByWater Solutions, Brendan Gallagher and Nate Curulla. Do you prefer Nate or Nathan?
Nate works.
Nate, okay. I know you have it Nathan some places and Nate in others, so.
Well, only when I want to get fancy, I go by Nathan,
So Brendan, actually both of you, I looked at the website a little bit and I was trying to learn a little bit preparing for this, and I was looking up your titles, and Brendan, you are the CEO, and Nate, you are the CRO, and I had to ask you a little bit what the CRO is because I'd never heard of a CRO. But I would like to spend a few minutes with our first question, asking you to please tell us a little bit about yourselves and your backgrounds, and we'll start with Brendan.
All right, great. So my background is my mom was a library director, and so she'd been encouraging me for years to get involved with libraries. So I graduated with a degree in ornithology, and I spent a couple of years after college doing bird research. It was really fun. I got paid to hike. I worked for the Smithsonian, and I did some bird studies for the Smithsonian, but the pay was not very good. So a job opened up at my mom's library, and she encouraged me to apply for it. It was called the Technology Librarian, and she said, "Give it a year and see if you like it." And I absolutely loved libraries. I loved working with it. I loved being involved on the tech side of things. And so I did it for a year, and then I decided to go and get my master's in library science. So I went and got my MLS, and then from there, I was working at the Middlebury Public Library in Connecticut. We were part of a consortium. And the consortium headquarters hired me from the library to work for the consortium. We were a Dynex shop at the time, so we were on Horizon. And we were all looking towards Horizon 8. Horizon 8 was being announced, and it was going to solve a lot of the problems our consortium had. And then Cersei bought Dynex, they merged, and they crashed Horizon 8, threw it onto the heap, onto the pile. And then that's when I started looking at open source. I'd done some other open source projects, and I'd done different web technologies with open source for my job. And then that's when I found Koha. And then I started installing Koha. And I would do that, like once I got home from work, I would install Koha in the basement on different Linux machines. And then I would do a migration of all of our data from our consortium into Koha. And then I go back to work the next day, and then I'd come home and I would just delete that server, and then I'd do it again. And I'd install Koha and do a migration and everything like that. And I fell in love with Koha. So then it was, my wife was in Connecticut, and then she left to move out to California to start a PhD in mathematics at University of California, Santa Barbara. So I followed along, and when I got out there, I didn't have a job. So I called up Nate and I said, I think we can really make an impact on supporting Koha. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do was we really wanted to make it all about support. It wasn't going to be, we wanted to focus on support. And I had always had not great relationships with support vendors when I was working as a librarian and working in consortium. And we really wanted to concentrate on that. And but we wanted to make an impact on the industry, the library industry as a whole, so that every other company would start to take support serious. And I think in the last 15, 16 years, you can see that other vendors in the library industry now, when they're doing their sales pitches, they talk about support now. So that was our goal. And so it's always been about having that good empathetic support. So that's a little bit of my background. Go ahead, Nate.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Yes, my name is Nate Curulla. I am the CRO of ByWater. What a CRO is it stands for Chief Revenue Officer. It's like a CFO, but I don't do the bookkeeping, so I didn't think a CFO was really accurate. What it boils down to is I'm in charge of helping libraries come on to the products that we support, and Brendan oversees taking care of them once they're here. So that's kind of my role in the company. Before starting ByWater with Brendan, I worked in retail mainly, sales in various different areas. I was a lighting designer for a while. I worked at an office supply retail store, running the store, in the sales department rather. And yeah, I really wasn't liking retail. I wasn't using my degree in entrepreneurial studies and marketing at all. And Brendan had this idea, and he told me about his experience in the library world. He told me what they were paying for software, and he told me about the service that they were getting in response. And it kind of made my jaw drop because, here I am selling pen refills on a Sunday, and, getting yelled at because it's the wrong one for $8, whereas these libraries are spending tens of thousands of dollars and waiting a month to hear back on a how-to question. So I immediately saw the opportunity, and, scoffed at all of the vendors who said this is not feasible. With your infrastructure, you cannot provide the levels of support that you're selling. You're selling something that you cannot make good on. And, I don't like to say I told you so, but 16 years later, we're still here. Our customers are happy. And, it's all about just caring and putting in the time and the effort and using empathy, and helping people when they need it, for the products and the services that they pay you for. So I think, based on Brendan's experience, that a lot of vendors in this space kind of lost sight of the importance of that because they've been here for so long and it's easy to get complacent. And that was really one of the things that we focused on when we built our company was checks and balances to avoid that from ever happening, even if we were stupid enough to become complacent. So the way we've structured our organization and the relationships that we have with our partners is such that we're easy to fire, and you can hold us accountable if we don't do our jobs. So that was a really big focus for us. We like to practice what we preach. So yeah, haven't looked back since. I take care of the sales, the outreach, the marketing, and my team, of course, underneath me does all the hard work. I mean, managers, but but yeah, it's been a great journey, and I can't believe we're coming up on 16 years in March.
Wow.
So, thinking about the history of ByWater and its position, as a support company for Koha and other open source products, and the formation of your company was focused around support of Koha, but that has grown into supporting other things like Aspen Discovery and Metabase and LibKey and Folio. So how has this impacted your company from its original inception? What kind of changes have you guys had to make to ByWater over the years to do all that?
It's a great question. Yes, we definitely started our roots with the Koha community, and it was a great place for us to start because it gave us our first real experience in a stable, functioning open source community. Even though when we joined, there was a lot of chaos going on. The major vendor at the time was in the process of forking the code. The community assets were up in the air. Some of them are still not owned by the community. So it was a little wild, but we kind of like baptism by fire, right? And we learned quickly what not to do by watching the mistakes of others. So that was a real boon for us. I'd like to think that we wouldn't have made those mistakes anyways, but it was a very, very clear indication of this is the line you have to walk when you're dealing in an open source community. And this is what happens if you don't do that line, follow that line. You got to know your role. So, it gave us a really firm foundation on the way the communities work. And it allowed us to really cut our teeth, and earn our our meritocracy within the code community by putting in, our blood, sweat, and tears. As we continue to grow, we hired Kyle Hall, who's our extremely talented developer, and he created LibKey, which is an online kiosk management system that's web-based. So we started supporting that as well. And that's really starting to gain speed now, which is great. And then 5 or 6 years ago, we started supporting Aspen discovery. And that brought a lot of growth and change within ByWater. And it really pushed us to start kind of locking down our organizational structure and our processes and formalizing a lot of the things that as a startup, we didn't really have to formalize as much. But as we continue to grow, to the company that we are now of 50 plus individuals, you need to have more of a structure. Your processes need to be nailed down just for efficiency and, for growth, and to ensure that you can be sustainable and scalable. So over the past 5 years, we've really been doing that on our internal processes, particularly with Koha. And now we're starting to kind of work that way with Aspen in terms of, processing implementations and support and the systems requests that we get in a more formal company-wide manner. So there's a lot of cross-training going on right now, et cetera. So, luckily we've got an extremely talented staff that's always thirsty for new knowledge and learning new things. So now we have the opportunity to kind of cross-train different departments that work on different products that work together, so that the knowledge is spread wider throughout the company. But it's always a moving target. We were the first web-based company in this industry. That really helped us out during COVID. Now a lot of companies are at least partially web-based. So we've had to adjust through the years just to kind of take in stride the environmental impacts and the socioeconomic influences that impact a small company like ours. So the name of the game is flexibility, and you got to know that every day is going to be different. So that's really kind of what's changed the most from my perspective is like, you really need to be on your toes. You need to be flexible and you need to be willing to change and to say, look, this isn't working. We're going to try something new. And that's that. And communication with our customers and our partners, about the changes and what we're doing, has also been extremely paramount over the past 16 years and one of the keys to our success. Brendan, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I do. So this is going to go back to my librarianness in my heart. And so I think one of the major keys for this has been all of our partners. Like George and Christopher, you both have done a lot that has helped ByWater because we call you partners because you're learning just as we're learning. And there's things that I've seen you two do with Koha that we've learned. And we're able to share that. And I think that that's the power of ByWater is that it's not only that we're the authority. I think that us as a group is the authority, and we're able to very easily share information, share knowledge, and we're all on this path of continuously learning. And that's been really powerful because there's definitely been things that we're all interested in learning going forward. So I just want to say personally to both you, George and Christopher, we've learned a lot from you. And I think it's been really great on how this whole group of librarians has gone forward as partners.
I think from a perspective as a customer and watching your company grow is that, well, one of the things that's a lot different for me, I've been a ByWater customer now at two different libraries for right. 12 years now, almost 13 years. And one of the big differences I've seen is that I used to know all of the employees. I used to know everybody that worked for your company. Now there right. are just too many. Right. But I've, knowing Christopher and knowing other people in koha-US and meeting other people that use Koha, a lot of those people that I met that used to be librarians are your employees now. So that's been really interesting to see right. people that were out there using Koha and learning how to use it and doing different things. And now they're working for you and helping other people learn how to use Koha. And that's been really great to see too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up on that question. As you bring in other products, open source products, it's obvious that they don't all live on the same programming platform. So has that created more of a challenge, having different platforms and different languages that your programmers and developers need to support?
Luckily, we've been a little bit lucky with that so far, because some of the languages are close enough that you can be dangerous in Perl and PHP, etc. So we've been lucky on that. Folio definitely represents like a different paradigm of programming languages and structure, and that I think it's been looked at from our developers as a chance for them to continue learning and having to become better technologists. And so that's kind of been like our attitude as the company is that like that learning thing I was talking about earlier, and it's getting a chance to kind of sharpen your tools.
Also, specialization. We still have people specializing on one product and being cross-trained in another. So it's not like they need a complete firm knowledge of the product that they're not specializing in, in all aspects. So that makes it the bar a little bit lower to kind of achieve as well.
All right. So ByWater Solutions has been very important to koha-US. You're integral in helping koha-US get off the ground and launch. And it's been a huge support over the last 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years now. Now ByWater is partnering with other groups across the globe to help launch the Koha Charitable Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and where that project is headed?
Yes, of course. I'm going to start with the koha-US, and I'm impressed with that whole organization. Originally, when there was discussion about starting some kind of users group, I really wanted it to be a users group and not have a vendor in there kind of pointing the direction of it. Just like that's how we treat Koha, right? It should be directed by the librarians and the users and not so much of a commercial identity. And so like I'm really, really impressed with how great Koha-US is. I mean, like look at the conferences that happen every year, the meetings, and just I'm impressed with the amount of content that has been created out of koha-US. Just all of the website, the help stuff. These podcasts are great. I mean, just how we're learning the terrific every other Thursday ones. And then for the Koha Charitable Foundation, this really kind of stems out of there are three companies, ByWater, BibLeap, and P2FS Europe, who are paying Jonathan Durant to do QA work for Koha. And we each pay a third of his monthly salary, and he is working for the project, and he is doing QA work. And so one of the difficulties there is that we really want it to be that Koha is the one that gives him the direction instead of these commercial identities. And so by creating a Koha Foundation or this charitable foundation, hopefully the three companies would be able to feed the money into the charitable foundation, and then the charitable foundation would be able to pay him and kind of help with direction. So it would be librarians directing on QA, and some parts of QA, there are follow-ups that need to be done. And sometimes it's hard to get the people that did the original development to do those follow-ups just to tighten up the code and tighten up the feature. And so it would have him it would give him the ability to be able to follow up on those QA things without it being directed by a commercial identity. And then there's also some other factors too. Currently, whoever is sponsoring a KohaCon, they're the ones who manage all the money that pulls off the conference. And sometimes, for example, ByWater hosted the Portland KohaCon in 2018, and the money was directed through our company. And so we ended up paying taxes on that. And sometimes maybe we weren't as efficient using that money as a tax-free foundation could do for supporting those conferences. So this would be another place where we could kind of collect money and use it more efficiently for supporting the international conference. And then there's also the factor of the project being able to go after grants. So there's a big search engine, Mozilla or like Firefox, and they have money that they give out, or like Google, some kind of search thing. And what we could do is we could apply for grants with those institutions. And sometimes it's harder for a commercial identity to be able to go after those grants and those fundraising opportunities. Whereas if we had like an international foundation, then it's viewed as like a not-for-profit entity, and we may be able to go after these grants to improve the project. There are plumbing needs that happen with, the code for Koha is 25 years old. And so there are updates with variables, there's updates with technology, and doing those kinds of systematic changes to the code, it would be nice if we could be paid for that. And then I think a foundation can raise money to go after those types of initiatives.
And as somebody else who's on the foundation steering committee, I can say that one of the goals that the foundation has, and one of the things we're trying to work out in the bylaws, is to make sure that it's not run by support companies, that there's as much involvement from the community and from librarians, if not more than from the support companies. So the goal is to make it a community foundation, not something run by the nonprofit or by the for-profits that are involved. So
it's a really big thing that we're trying to work into the bylaws. Really.
And we're also trying, and similar to that, we're also trying to make sure that there's support in the foundation from across the world, not just the U.S., but from every continent is the hope, to get people involved from all across the world, not just the English-speaking world.
So I will do a little pitch here for the charitable foundation. We are looking for librarians. We are in the process of working on the bylaws and creating laws that point to what George was just talking about. And as we bring these roles up, we want librarians to be involved with helping to direct some of the financial aspects of this project.
Awesome.
So what other projects is ByWater Solutions dipping its foot into right now? Is there anything beyond Koha, beyond Aspen, beyond Metabase?
We're getting a lot of interest in LibKey right now. So we are gearing up to start putting some development time into that product to beef it up a little bit in terms of the like payment options, for printing and printer management as well. But yeah, a lot of people are interested in LibKey. So we want to really kind of hit the gas on that product. Metabase has been gaining more and more steam. Also, having a reporting system that can pull in from all the solutions that you have and aggregate that data in a really easy to use, nice to look at interface is very appealing to librarians. And we're doing a lot of work with the Aspen community right now. It's in a growth phase where it's no longer one entity supporting this product. It's multiple. And that makes the community more complicated. and uh, things need to be done within that community to structure it differently and grow it in a sustainable way so that multiple support vendors can all come together to make sure that the product is stable going forward and continues to move forward in terms of new features and functionality. So it's a really exciting time in that community because it's relatively new community-wise. Aspen's been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of users for a long time as a user group community. But now it's like a open source vendor community. I'm going to re-say that. Sorry. Now it's a full open source multi-vendor collaborative community. So it's an exciting time, and we're really happy to be part of that. Brennan's part of the governance board. George, you're part of the governance board as well. So yeah, so we can't wait for that to continue to grow, and we can use our experience in working with the koha community while still making sure that Aspen has their own identity within that community. So that's where a lot of our efforts are kind of focused right now. But in the future, we may start dipping our toes into like archival software. We've seen a lot of interest from our special libraries, which constitute a pretty decent chunk of our partner base in managing their archival assets and linking that up with Koha or Aspen or both. So that's something that we are gently investigating at this time.
Are there any specific products you're looking at in that area?
I think there are about 3 or 4 that Ian, who's in that special projects department, is investigating right now. Ian also covers our folio support for our partners. So yeah, he's always kind of looking at new ways. But right now, we're busy with the 4 major products that we support. But we're always looking to the future.
Cool.
I'm curious if there are. Well, you talked about archival that you want to look at. With the talks that have transpired, especially lately on the development of AI, especially what's been coming out of China recently and how they kind of blew the lid off of that, it sounds like, and developed it so that it could be done on a much more affordable scale. Have you guys thought about exploring that arena at all?
Yeah. So our position on AI has been pretty steadfast since the beginning. And that is the number one step is to identify A, whether or not your partners want it, B, whether or not it's actually usable, and C, how to roll it out. Now, we do see some uses on the back end for AI in terms of ByWater processes. And that's where we're really going to start dabbling. Now, we are maintaining that none of our customers will ever talk to a robot unless they're leaving a message on our phone and it's a message machine, which is left by someone who works here. So it's a real person's voice. But our whole focus is using AI to empower our staff to do their jobs more efficiently and easier. Our team works really hard. Working from home has its benefits, but it also means that you're always at work, right? We never want people to work more than they're supposed to, but our dedicated staff sometimes doesn't listen. And having a tool like this, if you call in and ask our frontline support person a systems question that they might not know and can use AI to pull from our knowledge base, because we have so much content online. Think about all the blog posts we've done over the past 16 years, the Monday Minutes, all the videos, the manuals in all the communities. I mean, there's so much data out there. If we had a little rover to go and fetch it, then our frontline team can respond to more tickets quicker without having to pass it along to someone who specializes in that department and having the partner have to wait longer to get an answer or resolution. So if we had like a knowledge base generator that utilized AI, which we're lightly dabbling in right now, I think that would really kind of speed up our processes and efficiency. I think it could be useful as a data migration tool, perhaps. We haven't done a lot of investigation into that yet, but just kind of from the top looking down, there's a lot of mundane tasks that happen that may be able to be passed off in some portion to some AI technology. Now, I don't have any specifics on what that would look like, but the moral is you test it on yourself before you test it on your customers. We're not going to start throwing AI features into the koha community without asking and without really evaluating how effective these things are.
We're still definitely watching.
Yeah.
Yep.
I brought that up because this past Christmas, someone gave me a little kit. There was something that piqued my curiosity, not with AI, but just in circuitry. And there's a kit out there called the 30 Days Lost in Space. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I've heard it advertised here and there, and I thought I'd check it out. And one of the aspects of their product is they tapped into ChatGPT, and they did things with it that I didn't know that could be done. And they basically said, reference this document and respond back in the style of the host of this program. And I was really impressed with how they leveraged that in order to help people ask questions and get answers about this particular project. And I thought, wow, that has so much potential just with a product's documentation.
Yep.
How do you do this? And how can you ask a question in regular language and get a guide through the process based off of the documentation or whatever documents or commentaries that are out there that you reference to get the answer that you need. And I was really surprised. It kind of opened my eyes to AI a little bit, whether where it used to be very gimmicky to me, and now I can see the application of it much better through through my experience with this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Historically, with technology, the way I was on an NES when everybody else was playing Super Nintendo, right? And then I went right to the N64. When a plasma TV came out, I didn't buy that thing because it was $5,000 and it turned into a $300 TV 4 years later. I kind of want to take the same approach to AI, like with this deep seek, is that what they're, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to cut the cost of AI by 80, 90%, let's take a little break. Let's wait and see where this is going before we start jumping in with both of our feet. Now, Brendan, historically, he had the Google glasses when they first came out. So we balance each other out really well, and we'll find a middle ground and, work with our team. Of course, our staff has a huge say in this, as do our partners, and kind of take a measured approach to rolling this technology out.
Thanks for the reference, Christopher. I jotted that down. I'm going to take a look at that.
Yeah. So where do you see ByWater Solutions in 10 years? You've done a lot in the years that you've existed so far, over 15 years. But what are your hopes and aspirations for the company?
That's always one of those tough ones because you're always looking at the day to day, right? Or like you have your goals for this year. So I feel like there are some gains that we're doing now that are going to have a big effect in the next 10 years. And some of those are stabilizing of processes. So it's both internal and external processes. So for example, with Aspen, I think that a lot of the growth of Aspen has been treating the symptoms instead of the cause. And I think that a lot of what we're doing with development ideas in Aspen is we're identifying and like systematically programming for those causes. And that growth is going to allow us to expand Aspen in the next 10 years for being able to integrate with other products in a much easier way. It won't be as resource intensive. I think that's one of our major gains that we're going to see. And there's similar things with Koha. I talked a little bit about the plumbing of Koha is I feel like a very similar idea that we'll be able to increase the technology of Koha. So then that way we will be able to integrate with more products. The best thing I like about Koha is it's got that Linux idea, and it does the one thing well. It's an iOS. It's a library platform. It does that really well. So I think that as long as Koha keeps that idea and it does it really well, then we are going to make better ways of connecting with, web services or other products that are going to continue to make the platform great, but have Koha connect with those in easier and faster ways. For ByWater, I don't really know. I think that like a lot of the direction is going to be led by librarians. Like what are our librarians interested in doing in the next 10 years? Are we finally going to get away from Mark? Are we going to have some kind of Koha bib frame that's going to allow us to connect into web sources in different ways? I think a lot of that really is going to, it would be better to like ask our partners, what technology do they want to see in the next 10 years? And then let's do it together.
Do you think that's, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Christopher.
Do you think that's driven primarily by the librarians? I mean, like, for example, you want to get away from Mark. I get that. I see in my dabblings with cataloging, I can see, how a lot of the traditional old school card catalogs have played into, our electronic collections and the cataloging. And it's like, well, this made sense when you were doing it on cards, but
yep.
Why are we continuing that practice and tradition in an electronic database, which we seem to limit ourselves? So do you think that we're going to have to see a lot more of, I don't know, the old school catalogers phase out before that happens? Or what do you think might be the catalyst to tip us over that point?
I think that is definitely a lot of what's happening that we've been waiting for, is the phasing out of the older style of cataloging. I agree with that. And it may still be our catalyst. I am hoping that the sources of these records will continue. They will change their technologies and offer both or an alternative at that time. So then us as librarians, us as an open source project, can start to consume those sources. So it's kind of like, I think there's three people that all need to get together and do it at the same time and have that discussion.
I have two goals in the next 10 years. One is 35% market share of open source ILS and technology in the industry. Not with just ByWater. I'm talking total open source adoption in the library. Right now, it's probably at about 10 or 15%. So I'd like to double that. Between all of the vendors who support all the open source product, whether it be Aspen, Evergreen, whatever it is. I see that trend kind of growing year by year. The misgivings surrounding open source have been dropping off drastically over the past 5 years. People are starting to see that there are commercially viable organizations that are working extremely hard to make sure that you have an excellent end user experience. Libraries are seeing that deep-rooted need for us to help you, and it being genuine and driven by innovation rather than profits. And I think that's changing the industry as a whole. And I think that's a great thing. What's going to play into that also is third-party vendors, relationships with vendors who support products like ours. I think you're going to see more and more integration of the different vendors and different services you use in a more seamless interface, regardless of who you procure those services from. I've always been very against the idea that in order to have a single unified interface, you have to buy all your stuff from one person. I reject that because you wouldn't put all your stocks in one company. You got to diversify a little bit. You got to have power over the resources that you're in charge of. So in order to diversify, you need seamless integration, and a lot of third-party vendors like ebook vendors or publishers are starting to see that working with an open source company is easy, it's cheap, we don't charge, and our goal is for the end user's experience rather than getting rev share. So they're very eager to work with us and very open and helpful in those endeavors because everybody wins, including the customer. So that's just the way it should be. It's counter to a lot of business structure as it's been since the 70s, but we're disruptors. Sorry.
Well, George, do you have any other questions?
My comment is where I see myself in 10 years is I really want to be retired.
No, we won't let it happen, George.
I'm the right age for 10 years. I look forward to seeing what you guys are doing when I read about it in a trade magazine from a beach somewhere.
You'll be doing contract work for us, George.
Yeah, maybe. I'll be writing reports.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know your time is valuable, but I appreciate you taking time out of your busy work to talk with us and help us to get to know ByWater a little bit more and yourselves. So thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for sharing what's going on with ByWater, and we wish you well in the future.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for both of you and everyone in the community does to help support us and help us support you.
All right. And
Thanks
to everybody else watching, we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.